Australia. I've lived in Australia for a total of over 3 years on separate combined area and times, and I love Australia. And I hope that you get a chance to go because it is so different than any place else in the world in many ways, but really fascinating. Most people go, my favorite time, and most people will go in October. October seems to be the best time to tour all of the country. You don't want to go December, January, and February to the northern part up here. I keep going over there. To the northern part up here with Darwin and all of this, that's monsoon season. It's like our hurricane season. They get tons of rain, and you just don't want to be up there in December, January, and February. Although it's their summer, and December, January, and February is excellent for down here, but it can be very hot. Some places in the deserts over here and in the Whoop Whoop and the Outback can reach way over 100 degrees. And in some areas down in here, the humidity is quite high. And so is the humidity up here in Brisbane. It's more LA climate, sort of, I guess you might say. Very nice year-round climate there, but it can be cool, can have rain. So anyway, October, you can go the whole place and with minimal rain and minimal storms and minimal cold. So it's a nice place to go. And so I recommend 2 weeks, if you're going to see all of Australia, the major parts of Australia, I should say, because I don't think you're going to drive around like I did one time and take weeks. And I don't think you're going to do some wild things. But I want to mention some wild things to do, though. They have different cruises, like for 3 to 7 day cruises that do the north, the Kakaroos, and up to different areas of the north. So it's right here. You board them in Darwin, which is there, and some of them go over this way, and some of them come down here, like the Broome, and you get out. But they're through this area, and they're fabulous, absolutely fabulous, because you just check in one time like a cruise. But they're adventure cruises, and the people that are on there with you, there may only be, let's say, 20 people, and they're very well traveled, very educated, and very with it, and been to many unique places in the world. I just wanted to take this cruise. And that's a very good way to see that area, because in some ways you can't go any other way unless you charter a helicopter or a plane. But so most people will fly into Sydney, which is a great place to start. They call it the San Francisco of the South, and I'm not sure totally why, except it does have the famous Sydney Harbor Bridge. It does have a sort of an inland area of the water, like the ocean comes in. See, Sydney is probably 10 miles from the actual ocean, but it's a salt quay, Q-U-A-Y, but they say quay, that comes in. And so it's sort of like San Francisco in some way, but there's no other way, as far as I'm concerned, that they're similar. They don't have a similar weather. Well, no, they don't. They don't get as much fog there. But Sydney is a great place for 4 days. 3, you can do it easily with 4 nights or 5 days. I mean, neat things. For example, you can walk halfway across the Sydney Harbor Bridge. You start on the Sydney side of it. You get wired in and get these things on and clips, and they put you on a metal cable, and you walk up the bridge, and you walk across the bridge, and then you walk back down. I am claustrophobic, and I was a total wreck because it's fabulous. I wouldn't have traded it for anything, but it is terrifying for somebody with not claustrophobic, the fear of heights. I'm claustrophobic too, but it's fear of heights because you're up there and there's nothing around you. And if you look down, you're seeing the top of the Hyatt Regency Hotel. The Hyatt Hotel is Sydney Hyatt. Okay, I saw it. But you can do that. And then there's a Sydney Zoo, which is across the quay, is a wonderful zoo. You can even rent motorcycles and go charging up the coast and riding around. You can have them drive it for you, and you're on the back with them. Or they will, if you can prove yourself to be able to drive on the other side of the road, they might even let you drive it yourself. But you better be pretty proficient at that, because if you screw up turning and go in the wrong lane, it could be all over. So they have 2 trains that are quite famous, 3 really, but the 2 that are the most famous that you may want to take. One is called the Indian Pacific. It goes from the Pacific, which is here in Sydney, and it goes over to Adelaide, or just above Adelaide, and comes over to Perth. It's approximately a 4-day trip, and not with the train, and I've done it twice. And it's interesting because you can look out and see things, and if you're lucky enough, you can even see wild kangaroos hopping around, because there are millions of them there, and that's famous. And then they have the GAN, G-H-A-N. It goes from Adelaide up here to Darwin, to Alice Springs, that area there. It's really a neat train, and it's only like 36 hours, I think. It's not really a long train, but it goes through some neat territory. And it's called the GAN. They say GON, but the GAN, from Afghanistan. Back in the old days, in the 1800s, they needed people. They were harvesting, mining, all kinds of stuff up in the center part, and they needed horses or something to carry that over to the train track. And they hired and bought some camels from Afghanistan. They didn't know how to ride, make them go, so they got the Afghanistans to come over there to handle the camels, and then they call it the GAN for Afghanistan. And it's a wonderful train trip. If you have the time to do both, do it. Do both of them.
So you've traveled to Alice Springs, Jerry?
Yeah, I've been to the Springs quite a few times.
What is there to do in Alice Springs?
Alice Springs is in the, probably, they say, almost the dead center of Australia. It's right, well, let me draw you a little map here. Okay, I drew the little map. Okay, here's Tasmania. I don't draw. Here's Sydney. Here's Brisbane. Here's Darwin. Here's Perth. And here's Adelaide. And here's Alice Springs. And they're a long ways apart. You can rent cars and drive it, but I don't recommend it. Oh, well, you can drive this part, and you can drive around Tassie if you want. Here's Hobart down here, about there, and here's Launceston about there. And those are the main areas that people go. But while you're there, the GAN goes this way, and the Indian Pacific goes here, basically. And then they have boats, tour boats, that you can stay on, like 3, 5, 7 nights. And they start basically in Darwin, and they do this area here, and they do this area here. Some will go up to Papua New Guinea, some will go to like Bali, but this is the ones that you will want to take if you're going to stay in Australia. And that's the basic thing on transportation. Most people fly because it's long ways. It's like a 4.5-hour flight from Perth over here to Sydney, and it's just a long ways.
So what do you do in Alice Springs?
Well, you look at the camels, you look at how people live in the bush. Now you don't, well, if you really have the time and do it ahead of time, they have the flying mailman. And that is, I did it one time. I hope they still do it. And you have to reserve it way in advance. It only takes like 3 people. And there's a mailman that flies out to the different stations or farms or ranches and delivers mail. So he'll fly way out there, land, and give them their mail, and they'll take their mail. He'll fly up to someplace else and give their mail, and someplace else give their mail. And it's a wonderful way to see the people in the bush, not so much bush, but just out in the middle of nowhere.
Doing what, flying with the mailman?
No, you fly with the mailman.
You fly with the mailman?
Yeah, and then you land, and they come out. The people who own the ranch station, they come out and they take their mail and give them mail they want to mail.
So how is it that people can fly with the mail carrier?
You have to apply. Yeah, and apply like 6 months in advance.
Wow.
And you write them, email them, and say, I'd like to do it on this day if that's possible. And they'll tell you what dates are available.
Wow.
And there's really neat. It's a part of Australia that most people don't ever think about seeing.
That's based out of Alice Springs?
Yeah. And we say the Springs. The Australians say the Springs. But it's Alice Springs. And
Do many tourists travel to Alice Springs?
a lot of people do. I've got to get the new name of it. I don't see it. Anyway, there's a town that's famous for the Ayers Rock. It's called Ayers Rock. And it's over here. But they have a new name, an Aborigine name, of which it's like Ururu, something like that. And I have only seen it spelled a couple of times. And I haven't been there since they changed the names. This is that famous red rock that changes colors as the sun goes over. It's this big monolith sticking out nowhere. And now it's sacred for the Aborigines, but they have a new name for the Aborigines, and I never remember it. But they're sacred, so you can't climb it anymore. And to me, unless you just want to say, I see this rock, you can go out and see the rock and then fly back. But there's some neat things to do around it, and if you go by land, different canyons and areas that you can go into and see beautiful rocks. It's much like touring around southern part of Utah. All the red rocks, and it's just like southern Utah.
Did you climb Ayers Rock when it was?
I'm glad they stopped it though. I'm terrified of heights. I was okay going up, but coming down I was not okay at all, because some parts are quite steep, and I'd have to have my friends go in front of me. You don't climb by yourself. My friends go in front of me. I put my hands on their shoulders, stare right at the back of their head, and they'll say left foot. So they take a step down, and then I take a step. Right foot, and they go down that way. So I never look straight down. I never look anywhere but the back of their neck going down. It's the only way that I can do that. But you can go to that new name. I really should have looked it up. Ururu, something like Ururu. And if you want to see it, but you can't do anything about it. You can drive around it, which is interesting. And most people stay the night because on one side, in the morning, it's all different colors. And as it goes over, then it turns dark purple and dark. And it gets the other side is sunny, and then it reverses with the sun going up and down. The sides change. So people drive around it. And that's part. Well, there's nothing else to do out there.
How many days would you suggest somebody plan to spend in Alice Springs?
Alice Springs, 1 day, 2 nights, 1 day.
1 day, 2 nights, okay.
Yeah, unless there's something you really want to see. And there's not much to do that you can't do in 1 day that most people want to do. It's an interesting little town, and very Australian, very rural Australian, but it's a nice town, but most people don't want to spend their vacation on that unless they take the GAN up there. And then from there, they'll fly to Darwin and go up to Kakadu and different areas and see the local people, the native people there, whose name I cannot remember anymore. I apologize. But anyway, so you start in Sydney, and if you want to go to the center, you can, but I would recommend not starting in Sydney. I would recommend fly into Brisbane and do the Great Barrier Reef area. And if you're going to be diving, you have to spend a day or two acclimatizing, because you can't dive the day after you get there. And so I guess you could go to Sydney first, then to Brisbane, do the Great Barrier Reef, and the Daintree Forest. Daintree Forest is up here, and there's Brisbane, and there's Cairns. It's Cairns, but they say cans, like 2 cans of beans. There's Cairns there, and you go up here. It's beautiful, tropical jungle type of thing, and they have the Daintree Forest up there, and it's wonderful. And you can go beautiful beaches, and it's a nice place to stay. And then go here. Then you can fly to Darwin, and you can take the cruise if it's your schedule and you want to spend the money. But you do go out to the Kakadu, Arnhem Land, to see the local people. They'll teach you how to throw boomerangs and that kind of thing.
What is there to do in Darwin?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No.
So what?
No, Darwin is not noted for the tourists going there. I mean, yes, if you're desperate, you can go there.
What did you do in Darwin?
I talked to the local people that ran shops and restaurants. You'll go there to go somewhere else. You'll get on the boat. You'll join a tour out into the Arnhem Land or the Kakadoos. And that's why you go there, in my opinion. There's no real touristy thing that you can do. There's no reefs or anything. There's some decent diving out there. And there's some islands north of there, but they're only for people on their 4th or 5th trip there. Then you go to Darwin and just see Darwin and go out to the Arnhem Land or the Kimberleys or somewhere up there. Don't stay in Darwin. And then fly down to Alice Springs and then take the GAN on down to Adelaide. Or you can fly from Darwin down to Perth. Perth is my favorite city in the world. It has the weather that Miami and San Diego wish they had but don't. It is a fantastic city. I really like it. I've actually lived there a year and a half of my life. And I love it. But Perth is over here. Beautiful beaches, a lot of bush. It's sort of like this area of California where I live, Sacramento, the Bay Area and all that, because they have wineries out there in the mountains. They raise apples. And in Kalamunda over here, you can see the city over there. And great boat riding, great fishing, sea fishing, great snorkeling and diving. It's nice. But they do have the great white shark. They have the great white shark. And I'm going to say all the time, but that's sort of exaggerating. But it seems like all the time people are getting their leg bit off or get bitten by a great white shark. So they have those over there. But they have lifeguards sitting on high chairs. And if they see a fin out there, they whistle and send the alarm, and everybody has to come in. I've seen that many times because I had a flat or an apartment on Scarborough Beach overlooking the beach. The town's called Scarborough Beach. And overlooking the beach for about 8 months. And I'd hear that quite often. So then you go to Perth, and then you take the train across to Adelaide. And you go to Adelaide if you're into wines. It has like Napa Valley. Is there much like Napa Valley? And you go out to different wineries. And then you will fly, I recommend you fly down to Launceston and go to Tasmania. Right here.
From where to Tasmania?
You would fly from Adelaide, change planes probably in Melbourne, and you go down to Launceston. Launceston, but they say Launceston. Launcestan.
Launceston.
Launceston.
Okay.
On the Burnt River. And so as a result, you fly here, and then you drive around this way, through Strahan and Queenstown, and it's the old mining towns. It's a beautiful drive, wonderful drive, along rugged cliffs and everything. And you end up coming through seeing wonderful waterfalls and the they're not high mountains, but they are mountains where you have beautiful waterfalls. They're probably 2,000 feet mountain. So to me, that's not a mountain, it's a high hill. But it's there. And then you come through New Norfolk. It's New Norfolk, but they see New Norfolk. And it's right here. And that's where they raise a tremendous amount of wines and wineries. Then you come down to Hobart.
That's in Tasmania.
That's in Tasmania. And go to Hobart. And what you do, you can go on top of the mountain. It's a flat mountain in the backdrop, almost like Cape Town with tabletop. But you go up there and you can look at all the stuff around. It's very much that kind of concept. And then the thing that you have to do, you'll take a drive from here up through this area here on the peninsula, Eaglehawk's Neck. You'll come down here to Port Arthur, but they go Port Arthur. And you must go there. If you've ever read or seen the movie and read the book by Charles Dickens called Oliver Twist, or seen the movie Oliver,
I have not.
That comes to life. It comes to life because it has these ship logs. And see, Port Arthur is an English prison, sending all the people from England that stole an apple or a handkerchief or something else, to put them on a boat. We'll take them to Sydney or down to Port Arthur, and they put them in prison for whatever sentence they had, 1, 4, 5 years. And they have on the logs, they'll say the date, and they'll say under the nationality, I guess. But instead of saying English, they put POME, P-O-M-E, prisoner of Mother England. And that's why the Australians periodically, particularly the older ones, and the ones that are sort of joking about the English, they'll say, oh, he's a POME. And meaning he's British. And they would there's 2 major prisons near Sydney and down there in Port Arthur. So you go there, and right near the prison, and you tour, it's wonderful. You see the handprints. They all made their own cells, I guess. You can go down where I say the Barking Sand Beach. You just hop around and it goes arf, 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 as you go stepping around, and they don't know why, but it's fantastic. So
Why do they make that noise?
they don't really know why. It's just sand. There's something else in it, I guess, but you step on it and jump up and down and hop. I have a movie of me hopping up and down, and it looks like you're crazy. But it's going arf, 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 just like a barking dog. And then if you have more time, you will drive along the coast over here. It's a very rugged coast, beautiful long beaches, to St. Helens and St. Mary's, back into Launceston, drop your car and leave. And this, you would take probably a minimum of 6 or 7 days to do around Tassie. And most people don't go to Tassie. But everyone that I've recommended seeing Tassie, they've come back and says, best part of Australia. And in some ways it is, because it's all of Australia right there, condensed. Big mountains over here that were old volcanoes, I guess. And it's an amazing place. And Melbourne is an interesting city, and it's a great place to move out along the road, driving to Adelaide if you get a chance, because it's beautiful rock statues, not statues, but big formations of rocks in the water and on the land. And there's so much stuff to do. You can go south to see these little penguins at night that come in and they hop around, and you go down there and stand there and say, oh, that's cute. And that's if you've never been to Antarctica and you want to see penguins in the wild. They have penguins there. And then you just drive through Canberra, which is their Washington, D.C. It's just the district, the government district, and they call it Canberra. And go there and see the government buildings if you want. And then you can continue back to Sydney. But it's a beautiful drive. And as you see all the unique flora and fauna in Australia, hopefully you won't see any of their snakes. I've seen hundreds of them, and almost all of them are poisonous. And they're just everywhere. But it's a fabulous country. I highly recommend going and see it.